Welcome back, survivalists. So over the last couple of days, Maryland and Virginia got hit with up to 15 inches of snow in some areas in just an overnight storm. This caused massive power outages throughout both states, affecting thousands of homeowners. And more devastatingly, though, it caused hundreds of vehicles and drivers to be stranded on I-95 overnight. Some of them were stuck up to 27 hours in freezing cold conditions. So today we're going to kind of go over some of the details of the story and go over what you and your family can do to be prepared for your car emergency kit, for your winter car emergency kit in case you're ever stuck in a situation like that as well. And also what steps you can take to be prepared in your own home for one of these winter blackouts. So let's go ahead and jump right into the story here. So this New York Times, stranded drivers are freed after 24-hour snowy ordeal. Hundreds were stuck overnight on the interstate south of Washington, D.C. A United States senator was among the trapped. You can see a few of the images here and some of the video here from the snowstorm. A 40-mile stretch of the highway, one of the busiest travel corridors in the United States, came to a standstill overnight after a fast-falling snowstorm led to jackknife tractor trailers and hundreds of other accidents. Some people abandoned the cars. Many, including a U.S. senator, spent the night in the snowy highway. So here's some of the images here. You know, when you have multiple tractor trailers and a kind of jackknife across the highway, and you have multiple vehicles spinning off the side of the road, there's not much that you can do just as a car in that situation, right? It creates a really bad situation where the emergency responders have a heck of a time getting to those vehicles to free them so everybody else can move on. It just kind of escalates into a worse and worse situation. Officials said that the snowstorm began on Monday with rain, which would have washed away the road salt and quickly overwhelmed efforts to keep the highway clear. Rain turned to sleet and then snow, which fell at a rate of 2 inches an hour for 4 to 5 hours. Virginia State Police said the authorities had responded to more than 1,000 traffic accidents and more than 1,000 disabled or stuck vehicles statewide. We don't believe those accidents and vehicles include the ones on I-95. The snowstorm trapped truckers, students, families, every stripe of commuter, including Tim Kaine, the junior U.S. Senator from Virginia and former Democratic nominee for vice president. So Tim Kaine was Hillary Clinton's running mate when she ran last. So he would have been our vice president, potentially could have been anyway. And he even got stuck in this. So there is no, how much money you have, your social status, none of that matters in emergency situations like this. More than 20 hours stuck. So Tim Kaine spent more than 20 hours stuck in his vehicle. He said after he left his car for 30 minutes, he left his car on for 30 minutes at a time to charge his phone, make calls, and warm up, then turned it off to save gas and try to sleep for 20 minutes or so. Mr. Kaine said he passed the time by sipping Dr. Pepper, listening to Sirius XM radio, and eating small wedges of oranges that other stranded drivers gave to him. So I think this last part is pretty interesting because, we prep not just to be prepared for ourselves and our families, but we prep so that in situations like this, we can help other people out as well. Just imagine if you were one of these vehicles trapped in here and you had an entire box of hand warmers in the trunk of your car. You could literally go from car to car handing out hand warmers and at least helping the people within your general area. If you have extra food, you have extra water, you can help those people around you. This is really why we prep, not just for ourselves, but to help other people in our communities as well. Same thing goes for, your home preps, right? If you are prepared, you can help those around you. And so this is a picture of Tim Kaine, in case you don't remember him. He was Hillary Clinton's running mate. And I think this is pretty interesting, too, that he says that he'd have to run his car for 30 minutes and then turn it off to save gas. And that's, in this situation, running out of gas is got to be on the top of everybody's mind during a disaster like this where you're stuck in your vehicle and in freezing cold temperatures as well. And you got to find that balancing act between keeping your family and yourself warm, in the middle of the night when it's probably 10 degrees out, and conserving that gas. Because what happens when the traffic finally starts moving and now your car is stuck as well? And again, that just makes this problem so much worse, because how many vehicles probably did run out of gas during this situation, which means that they need somebody to tow their car away or bring them gasoline before they can move and allow anybody else to move. Like, what a complete disaster this situation turned into. Jen Travis, a marketing agency owner from Sterling, Virginia, said she and her husband and their 12-year-old daughter got stuck near Fredericksburg, VA. Mrs. Travis, 42, said the family had no food since they stopped for dinner around 7 p.m. on Monday. She said she hadn't gone to the bathroom that entire time either. So that's a whole nother thing as well. 27 hours, or some people spent 24 hours trapped in your vehicle. Those people, I mean, how do you use the bathroom? They had to have used the bathroom. I'm guessing they just had to open up their car doors and kind of, go between the car doors. Your hygiene kind of goes out the window at that point. And she's saying that they had no food for almost that entire time. Again, 24 hours without any food, most people can't do that. I do intermittent fasting. So like I'm kind of used to going that long if I had to. Psychologically, though, a lot of people would be freaking out if they went 24 hours without any food. They psychologically could not handle that. Now, my son, he has very severe intellectual disabilities. He has autism and a lot of behavioral challenges and everything. If I got stuck in a vehicle with him for 24 hours, it would be a complete freaking nightmare. It would be a complete nightmare. He's very picky about what foods he eats. Like, we wouldn't have enough food in there anyway. He's still not potty trained. I can guarantee you to run out of diapers and everything for him. I wouldn't even want to imagine that. That would be a complete nightmare, being stuck in a car like that with my son. And just imagine if you have, let's say, a newborn baby and you're stuck in freezing cold weather overnight with your child. Just how horrible of a situation this must have been for many of these drivers. Because it's just like randomly picking some people out of the general population and sticking them in this situation. So I thought this was interesting as well. Sheetz gas station in Woodford, VA, on Tuesday afternoon said the customers had been streaming in, many on foot, having walked about a quarter of a mile from the highway. So freezing cold weather in the middle of the night, in the middle of a blizzard, and these people are leaving their cars and walking just to try to get some food and try to get some water, maybe some kind of warmth for their families. It doesn't take very long before you have, refugees like this just walking, trying to find some kind of food or resources for their families. The bad weather also disrupted rail traffic in Virginia. An Amtrak train that was on its way to New York from New Orleans returned to the station in Lynchburg, VA, after coming to a stop north of there on Monday, according to passengers who said they had been told the downed trees were blocking the tracks. So again, like what this is showing is that very quickly, the highways and the transportation that we take for granted can literally, in just overnight, come grinding to a halt and just stop working. So like not only were these people trapped on I-95, but nobody else could use I-95. Nobody else could travel along that. People also couldn't leave on Amtrak because the Amtrak rails were shut down as well. So, how many people were just stranded? They just got stuck wherever they're at. They may have had to spend the night. They probably could find an Airbnb or hotel or something. But nonetheless, like, it's not uncommon for people to not be able to use transportation and get back to their homes. I think it's just another reason why we need to be prepared, have car emergency kits. Not if we get stuck in the traffic like that, but if we can't use the traffic and we can't get to where we're trying to get. We take for granted things like electricity and running water, but we also take for granted our transportation and, being able to use the highways and use the Amtrak and buses and all that stuff. All of that can go away in a moment, though, and this is clearly demonstrating that as well. The storm caused problems around the region, burying parts of Virginia in more than 15 inches of snow. knocking out power for hundreds of thousands of customers in Virginia and Maryland, North Carolina, and Tennessee. So I'm in Maryland, right? So we got hit by this exact storm. Luckily, I did not lose power, surprisingly. My cousin, though, he did lose power. He lost power for, I believe, 3 days. He didn't have a generator or anything. He had to actually go and buy a generator just for that because they lost power. But even then, they had a generator. Great. They didn't have any hot water, right? The generator, they couldn't heat their hot water heater. They couldn't heat their HVAC systems. They didn't have heat in their house either. So they bought a generator, and then they quickly realized that still sucked. And so then they got in their car and they drove and got an Airbnb somewhere that actually had electricity and just stayed in that for a few days. But I know several other people who lost power during this time period as well. Hundreds of thousands of people lost power, according to this. So Monday's storm led to the death of at least 5 people. I'm actually surprised that it's not more than that, honestly. Local news outlets in Tennessee and Georgia reported that a child in each state had died after trees fell onto their homes. So that last part there kind of terrifies me. That's something that's always really kind of terrified me. Is just imagine if you're, you think that your home is so safe and secure and you're protected, but a tree can literally just fall right through your roof at any moment. So me personally, I did cut away all the trees really close to my house. I try to keep, that does freak me out that trees can fall on my home or that branches can fall on my home and damage my home, but not just damage your home. They can literally fall through your roof. They could come into your room because there's so much weight behind them. Some of these trees are so large. I think that's just kind of another reminder that you really want to keep those trees away from your house if you can. This is kind of another little safety tip there. What's up from northern Indiana? Hey man, how's it going, guys? Yeah, so if you guys were affected by the storm, you were in Maryland, Virginia, DC, any of these states were affected by the storm, comment down below with kind of what your experience was with this. If you had any power outages or anything like that. I know me personally, my power stayed running the whole time, luckily. But, all the back roads were just really terrible. And I didn't even bother going out. That first day we had the snowstorm, I just sheltered in place, right? I had no reason that I had to leave my house. There's some people that, they want to get out of their house and they go driving somewhere just to get out of the house. But, if you don't have any reason you have to, just shelter in place. And I did that for, maybe 2 days. I just kind of hunkered down and stayed in my home. The truck drivers were making breakfast for others. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, they probably have quite a few resources inside their trucks. They practically live in their trucks anyway. So yeah, that's a good point. They probably did have a lot of resources that they could share with others. Thank you for saying that prepping is a community-minded habit. I honestly believe that, Too often people have these fantasies in their heads about prepping, that prepping is, you're the lone survivor in the Walking Dead scenario, and you're going to run around with your katana and your shotgun and, all this nonsense fantasy stuff. But the truth is, events like this is what we should be prepping for, or the tornadoes that hit Kentucky just, a month ago. That type of stuff is what we should be prepping for. And we should be having resources that we can give others around us as well, helping out others. That's how we really get through these things, is coming together as a community. Always be prepared when gone from home. Yeah, I think this is a great example of why you should have your EDC items, right? You should be somewhat prepared with the gear on you. And you should have in a car emergency kit. You absolutely should have a car emergency kit. And that kit should have things like jumper cables and, first aid kit, kind of these standard things. But during the wintertime, you need to add additional items to that car emergency kit. Maryland is not known for snow. We don't really get a lot of snow here. It snows maybe 2-3 times a year. We have years where we get 0 snow. But nonetheless, we're running into the situation here, and it would be a mistake for you to not prepare for this scenario just because you don't get snow all that often. Last winter, during the down in Texas, the polar vortex went all the way down to Texas, and they saw those winter blackouts that lasted for weeks and killed hundreds of people in Texas. Many of them were not prepared for winter blackouts and blizzard storms, right? They weren't prioritizing that. They didn't think that was going to be a concern of theirs. And, people literally, they were miserable. Many of them, hundreds of thousands of them, were without power and miserable. And so many of them also died because they were not prepared for those winter storms. Be prepared to bug in and survive a winter storm at home too. 100%. Sheltering in place is almost always the appropriate course of action during disaster situations, right? So sheltering in place in your home or sheltering in place in your vehicle during this scenario as well. You need to be prepared so that you have the resources so that you can shelter in place during a situation like this. Hello all from Jen and Jim, the indie space, and Tech Profit. So let's talk about a few items that you should add to your car emergency kit for situations like this. Again, this is right outside our nation's capital, right? This isn't like in the middle of nowhere, North Dakota or something, right? This is a very heavily used highway. I-95, I think it's like a 4-lane highway in each direction. It's a major vein of traffic going into DC. So it's pretty mind-blowing that this happened on there. But what are some of the items that, even if you're in DC and Virginia, that you should be adding to your car emergency kit for the winter time? So one of those items would definitely be hand warmers. These things are pretty amazing, and they are pretty cheap as well. I mean, $20, you can get an entire box of these. And again, if you were this situation, you're trapped with hundreds of other people, you would be people's freaking hero if you pulled out that box and went from car to car handing out hand warmers like this. If you have a car emergency kit, well, if you don't, you need to have a car emergency kit. But this is definitely something that you should add to your car emergency kit for this exact situation. Now, these people were all trapped together on this major highway, but what you see a lot is in more rural areas, your car will veer off and go into a ditch while it's still snowing, and the snow will continue to pile onto your car. And let's say it's the middle of the night. It's not uncommon for people to get trapped in their vehicle in the middle of these snowstorms overnight. And if you were in an accident, I mean, your car may be disabled, so you can't even run it for the heat. You may be injured as well, if you're in that type of situation. So even in really rural areas, being trapped in your car in the middle of a blizzard overnight is a very real scenario that is pretty terrifying for a lot of people. And so one of the first things I would add is a hand warmer. There's a chemical reaction between these chemicals that causes them to heat up. These ones only last 7 hours. I have other ones that will last a lot longer than that. But these things are super small. They're very affordable. 100% you should have hand warmers in there. This may be your only source of heat, And let's say you had this, and let's say you're in the scenario, you could use these instead of running your car to heat up your car and using up all your fuel. You can conserve your fuel because you have these. So there's just something else to kind of keep in mind. We got a couple comments here. Be aware Russian bots are following me. Sorry. Okay. Always have blankets in the car and snacks like beef jerky. Yes, I agree with that. I think blankets are a great addition to keep in your car. San Antonio, Texas. I was living in Maryland during the last big storm in 2010. Yeah, the snowpocalypse. I was here for that as well. I felt like the state shut down for a week. 195 worst traffic ever. Maybe I-95 worst traffic ever. Yeah, 2010, we had a terrible snowpocalypse, right? Terrible snowstorm here in Maryland. I remember that. That was pretty interesting. I was still in the military at that time. Also be aware of scammers. Okay. New to this channel, shalom, everyone. Yeah, welcome to the channel, man. Talking a lot about emergency preparedness and survival. And so, Barry was talking about having blankets, and that's actually my next item I was going to recommend is an emergency blanket in your vehicle. And not just one, but you want to have enough for your entire family. And really what these are is they're super thin, but they're good at reflecting your body's heat back towards you. So during an emergency situation, a wilderness survival situation, being stuck in your vehicle like this, your best source of heat is actually going to be your own body. Your body puts off a lot of heat. And you don't want to focus necessarily on finding some external source of heat. You really want to focus on conserving that heat around you and trapping that heat around you. That's what these emergency blankets do really well. They actually reflect that heat back in on you. I mean, you can wrap one of these things around you and literally be sweating. It is so effective at that. And so that's really what you want to focus on during a situation like this. So what can you do to conserve your heat and keep your heat close to you? And so I would recommend having one of these in your vehicle for everybody, everybody in your family. You know, a family of 5, have at least 5 of these, maybe even more, so you can share them with other people. Thank you for your service. Yeah, thank you, man. I spent 11 years in the Air Force. I have Zippo hand warmers for both my wife and I. Hello from Iowa. Yeah, Zippo's really expanding out into other products. I have a Zippo Axe that I was going to make a review video of, but yeah, so the Zippo hand warmers. Tell me about those. Are those? Is that an electric thing? I think they have some kind of electric gadget like that. Is it time to leave Maryland due to COVID mandates? No, I think the mandates aren't really anything crazy here. I think with the new variant, they once again are requiring that all indoor places have to wear masks. You know, it's not like we got rid of that requirement for a few months. Now this new variant came back. Now everybody has to wear masks again indoors. But you know, at this point, like there's so many people who've already gotten the damn thing. I got it. I was gonna make a video about it. I decided not to, but I got it a couple weeks ago. It wasn't the baddest. It wasn't the worst. You know. Cold or anything. I've had worse colds, is what I'm saying. This new one's not that bad. My brother and his whole family have it right now as well. So I think, you know, so many people have it that everybody's kind of over it at this point. Strong prepper here. It is a way of life for me. Okay, good. Glad to hear it, man. I mean, you're going to be the type of person that can help out others in your community that are not focused on this nearly as much. I live in South San Antonio, Texas. I'd say we're the lucky ones. I still had electricity, but did not have busted water lines. I'm actually stocking up on some non-perishable food, just trying to be ahead. So great, man. So yeah, I forget where in San Antonio or where in Texas they had those power outages. Was it San Antonio? It may have been, but I know that it went weeks without any power in the middle of the winter. And yeah, they had a lot of people had pipes that were bursting and spewing water inside their home. Again, you know, that as well as the trees falling in your home, it shows you that this home of yours is just made out of wood, and it's not as safe as a lot of us like to think so. I used a candle lantern hung from my rearview mirror to survive overnights. And my Mercedes had an emergency blanket in its roadside hazard kit. Very nice, which I use to retain my body heat. So I've heard different things like a single candle in your car can raise the temperature of the car by so many degrees. I need to test that theory out, right? I've heard that. I'm not really sure. Like I've heard people say, oh, you light like 5 tea lights in your car and it'll raise the temperature so many degrees. It's possible, you know, it's a source of heat. That's better than nothing. And when you're trying to heat up an area, the smaller the area you're trying to heat up, the more effective it's going to be. So like, for example, when I'm setting up my hammock tent, if I have my tarp up really high and I kind of have a big area, it's going to be really hard for me to heat up that area. But if I have my tarp right above my hammock, I can actually heat up that area, just my body heat. It is actually much warmer under that tarp immediately when it's much closer to my hammock. Or a better analogy would be if you're out camping and it's in the fall or winter, if it's just you and you buy a big 4-person tent, you now have to heat up that entire space with just your body heat of a 4-person tent. If you were to just get a smaller 1-person tent, it's much easier for you to heat up the air in that space. So having a single candle, I think the argument is that a car is so small that a single candle could make a difference in terms of temperature. Theoretically, it makes sense to me, but I got to test that out. I'm kind of curious myself. I'm saying if they start requiring the Vax card, I don't know anything about. I don't think that they're going to require anything like that here in Maryland. We got a Republican governor, for crying out loud. The Zippo lights are the type that use lighter fluid. Okay, very cool. Zippo lights. Well, yeah, I mean, I know what a Zippo lighter is. I thought you said something about a hand warmer. So does a hand warmer use lighter fluid as well? Oh, no, let me see. What was your original thing? Where's Gary? I have Zippo hand warmers for both my wife and I. Hello from Iowa. Yeah, I mean, I'm not familiar with their hand warmers. I don't think. The lights are the ones. Lighter fluid. I've got several Zippo lighters though. They're fun to use. They're kind of a novelty, honestly. Like I wouldn't put a Zippo lighter in like a survival kit or bring it backpacking with me or anything like that. It's kind of a cool little thing to play around with. Look at that from Ilea. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Much love. Yeah, thank you for the super chat. I really really appreciate that. And yeah, I definitely like doing these live streams. I like kind of bringing awareness to these disasters that really happen, right? This is the type of disaster that we need to be prepared for. Not the zombie apocalypse or not, COVID mandates or any of these things or government shutdowns. It's disasters like this that we really need to be prepared for. So where was I? I'm saying if they start, okay. A solar inflatable light. I love those. I got several. Some charged by USB as well. USB powered hand warmers work great. Water, Cliff Bars, 12-volt plug, an electric blanket, and a phone charger. Yeah, those are all great things to keep in your vehicle kit. USB powered hand warmers. That's interesting. I don't have any of those. I should buy some of those. I feel like that would be something I could make a video about or include in one of my videos. I love that idea of USB powered hand warmers because I have a lot of these little battery systems. I have solar lanterns by Luminade, right? I'm a really big fan of those things. Yeah, I think all that stuff would be perfect for, a car emergency kit. 12-volt plug-in electric blanket. I never even thought about that. Again, that'd be a perfect item. What I like about that is electric blankets, even if you don't have electricity, they still work as a blanket, right? No electricity, they still keep you warm as a blanket. And it's not like it takes up much more space being an electric blanket versus just a blanket. Yeah, I love the idea of a 12-volt electric blanket. Phone chargers, definitely you need those. San Antonio, Texas. My power was out for 4 days in February. Gas fireplace saved me. Yeah, that's a good point. Had plenty of food to cook on the barbecue pit. Started prepping halfway after COVID. After Feb, I'm all in. That's great, man. Hey, man, I'm glad to have you in the community of emergency preparedness and preppers. You get a bit of a bad reputation, that we're all prepping for the zombie apocalypse, but there's very real scenarios that we need to be prepared for. And you bring up a good point about your barbecue pit. If I went several days without any power, one of the first things I would do is I would cook on my barbecue outside, right? I have all these propane tanks I could cook on, so you still have access to, a lot of people forget they still have access to your propane tanks for your grill. You could heat up some water, bring it into your home. Zippo hand warmers are the TY that use lighter fluid, but Zippo does not have battery types. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'll have to look that up. I never even knew about Zippo hand warmers that use lighter fluid. That's really interesting. Zippo hand warmers are the lighter fluid type. Zippo does have battery operated hand warmers. Okay, I got to look this up. Hold on. Let's go to Google and look this up. This is pretty interesting. Zippo hand warmer. Let's take a look at what these even look like. Yeah, I mean, I think I've seen images of these. That's why you actually light it up. Let's open up one of these. You guys have got me curious. I think you can't quite see my full screen. But yeah, that's really interesting, man. I'm gonna have to look these things up. I love the idea of using a Zippo hand warmer like that. Something other than just that chemical reaction. Again, thank you, Ilea, for the super chat. Yes, hand warmers use the same lighter fluid that you use in your Zippo lighter. Okay, very cool. So let's go on to some other items that you may want to include in your car emergency kit. So we said the emergency blankets definitely could literally save your life. Hand warmers are a super, super nice thing to have. I would say having some food in your vehicle is a great idea as well, right? I used to keep like protein bars and little snacks like that in my vehicle. I used to just buy a whole box and just throw it in the trunk of my car. Right? You buy a box of candy bars or whatever, $4 or $5, throw it in the trunk of your car. A lot of them taste pretty funky after a couple of years though of being in there. Something maybe a little bit better is something like these SOS emergency food rations. These are sealed up tight and they're packaged and freeze dried. I think they're freeze dried, so they will literally last you for 10 years, right? So these ones were manufactured in 2018. Says the expiration date is 2023. Okay, so actually these are only really designed for 5 years, but I'm sure they're still good after that, honestly. But something like this would get you guys through a power being stuck in your vehicle like that for 24 hours. And again, a lot of people, like I test myself sometimes, I can go 24 hours without eating a single calorie. Most people can't do that. Psychologically, they would lose their crap if they had to go that long without eating a single calorie. There's something psychological about eating food. A lot of people have this misconception about your priorities of survival that food would be at the top of that list. And I think it's a psychological because we're so focused on food all day long. We're constantly looking at what are we going to eat next, where are we going to get our breakfast, our lunch, our dinner, our snacks, our coffees, our drinks. But food is not a top priority. But nonetheless, you should have some of these things in there because psychologically people are going to be freaking out without any food. And again, your body is your number one source of heat during emergency situations. Your body gets that heat from the food that it eats. So I would definitely say having some emergency rations like that in your vehicle is definitely a great idea. If not that, just go and buy a box of, protein bars or some kind of bar type thing that you can keep in your trunk for situations like that. Hey, y'all, I survived 2 blizzards, 77 to 78 and 78 to 79. I'm glad to hear you survived, man. Welcome to the channel. What's up, Ilea? See my true colors. That one was sent. Okay. Let's not forget a flashlight. Yeah, I was debating whether or not to include a flashlight in this thing. Flashlights are definitely useful. Maybe they'll put off a little bit of heat. Probably not the LED flashlights, but the old school flashlights may put off a little bit of heat. A flashlight would definitely be a good thing to have. So you definitely should have a flashlight in your car emergency kit. I don't want to say you shouldn't, but you definitely should. My wife bakes bread in our fireplace in a Dutch oven. That's awesome, man. Yeah. So you'd be fine. You'd probably go weeks without any power, and you guys would be just fine. I've got a few mono chains. I also have candles and used oil lamps. Okay, good. So you're talking about if the power goes out in the winter, you're all set with your oil lamps and your candles. I just made a video about building a blackout bag. And I think this should be one of the first kits people should build for their homes. And I actually moved away from having candles and oil lamps and all these things. And for me, it's because I have children. I have a child. And I wanted to build one that was not focused on fire, right? A kind of a kid safety, safety blackout bag for these emergency situations as well. So mine really focused more on glow sticks and less on candles and fire use. It's just something to kind of keep in mind if you guys are building a car emergency kit or whatever for that you want to be kid friendly. Walmart carries the Zippo hand warmers in fluid if you're interested. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. So my grandfather, he passed away in 2006, and I was up there recently, and I found an old Zippo of his that has his name engraved on it, has some other etching in there. It's probably super old, and it's damaged. The hinge part actually broke completely off, and it's kind of scratched up. And I was looking around, where can I get a Zippo repaired at? Because it has his name engraved on there and everything. That'd be an awesome little souvenir to have. I found out Zippos actually have a lifetime warranty. Your Zippo lighter, if it breaks, you can send it back to the manufacturer. They'll fix it for free and send it back to you. I never knew that. I think that's pretty awesome. So I'm working on it right now. I'm going to send this, Zippo, my grandfather's engraving, back to the factory, see if they can fix the hinge. So like the top part just completely disconnects instead of having that hinge on it. So yeah, Zippo is a great brand. I'm amazed that they have a lifetime warranty on their Zippo lighters, which is pretty amazing. Survival Buzz says, hello, everyone. Yes, candles are great. I get free ones from the dumpster at the Dollar Tree. I never thought about that. When I was a teenager, I used to do dumpster diving. I always thought that was kind of interesting, seeing what I can get for free. I have not done that in a long time, but yeah, going to the Dollar Tree and doing some dumpster diving, I think that's a pretty awesome idea, actually. Everyone should have those silver thermal blankets in their car. Thank you, Barry. 100%, man. These things are awesome at reflecting that heat back at you. And yeah, Barry, beef jerky, I think it has an excellent shelf life, packed full of calories and proteins and nutrients and everything. Beef jerky would probably be a much better choice than like a candy bar, honestly. Like beef jerky is, I think, an excellent option to keep within your car, your vehicle kit. Jess says, I've been looking at the weather here and around San Antonio. So far, we will be looking at mild temps. So far, they're saying that February is going to be pretty mild as well. Guess we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, you just never know. Maryland is usually pretty mild. We have years where we get 0 snow. So to get this freak storm where we get 15 inches of snow overnight, one, nobody here in Maryland knows how to drive in snow. I'm originally from upstate New York, and I still spend a lot of time up there. I'm pretty good in the snow, but here in Maryland and Virginia, nobody knows how to drive in snow. We get this 2 inches, and there's cars flying all over off the road and everything. But you just never know. You still should be prepared for these types of scenarios, especially global warming, climate change, all these things, whatever you want to call it. These temperature patterns are getting disrupted. I think everybody can kind of agree on that. And we are seeing, things like the polar vortex going all the way down in Texas. And we're seeing disruptions in our typical patterns of weather. So you just never really know. I've done 5 days without food. Holy cow, man. So yeah, so I think that intermittent fasting, there's a lot of science behind it, how healthy it is, especially going these prolonged 2 or 3 days without food. Like there's a lot of science, and it's very healthy for you to do that. It's much more in sync with what our biological rhythms are used to going back. We went back a couple thousand years, hundreds of years. And I think psychologically, knowing that you can go 5 days without food, if you're trapped in your car for 24 hours, you're not going to be freaking out like a lot of other people will be. And so you saw in that article that people were leaving their cars, hiking down the highway, hoping to find a gas station they can buy some food and snacks at. What if people had to go half a mile? That puts themselves there, makes themselves very vulnerable just to get some snacks for themselves and their families. If I was in that situation, I'm like, okay, I got to do a 12-hour fast, 24-hour fast, not a problem. I do those all the time. So psychologically being prepared, you don't have to put yourself in these risky positions. So some other items before we go into the other comments that I think that is pretty important as well is keeping water in your vehicle as well. Now it's a little tricky because those plastic bottles that you buy, they're really not meant for long-term storage. And if you're in freezing cold weather, you have to worry about them, potentially bursting as well. But nonetheless, I do almost always have bottles of water somewhere in my car. And I do just have the plastic bottles. I've never had any of them burst on me. I think that there is quite a bit of room that they can expand in. But if you don't want to just buy water bottles, another thing you can buy is these little pouches of water, right? I think that these are a great addition to your car emergency kit as well. These are single serving pouches of water. I think something like this would be a great idea in your car. I would argue that's probably even more important than food, having food in your vehicle, right? You want to take care of warmth, keeping yourself warm, and then I'd say water would be your next priority. Food would be kind of lower down there. But having some water like that, I think, would be a great addition to your car emergency kit as well. Last thing I would add is like a deck of cards, right? If you just imagine if you got stuck in your car, 24 hours in your car, you can't leave, and let's say your cell phone is dead and your car is dead. what do you do, right? That could be a YouTube video right there. Surviving 24 hours in my vehicle. I'm gonna write that down. That could be a YouTube video right there. Somebody remind me to make that video. But what do you do in that type of situation, right? I honestly believe that we need to do something to keep our minds stimulated. And if you don't keep your mind stimulated, that is when people start making mistakes. They get bored, they get restless. They say, you know what? I'm just going to start walking until I find a gas station in the middle of the night, in the middle of a blizzard, even if they have to walk 2 miles in a blizzard. They'll do that just to stimulate their minds, right? There's tests out there. There's this psychological test where people are hooked up to these electrodes and somebody presses a button and it shocks the person. And it's not a pleasant shock. They get shocked. And then the researcher leaves the room and just leaves the participants in the room hooked up with just a big red button. And they know if they press that button, it's going to shock them again. And they wait and see what people do. And after about 10 minutes of just sitting there with nothing to do, no stimulation whatsoever, a fair number of people reach over and press the button to shock themselves again. They would rather experience pain and getting electrocuted mildly than having no stimulation whatsoever, right? This is why you need to have something in your car to keep you and your family, especially your kids, occupied for situations like this. Even if it wasn't a 24-hour that you're trapped in your car, maybe it was like 6 hours, you get stuck in a bad traffic jam. If you have kids, you should have books, you should have decks of cards, crayons, coloring books, pen and paper, whatever you can have to keep them occupied and keep them, mentally, kind of there and with it and active. I honestly think that you need something like this. And I recommend having books and board games and deck of cards and everything in your home emergency kit as well for that exact reason. When you get bored and complacent, that is when you make mistakes. If you're ever in the military, they talk about that a lot. Complacency kills, especially when you're deployed. You do the same thing over and over and over and over again. You kind of become desensitized to these very dangerous situations and you let your guard down, and that's when you make mistakes. So yeah, having something to keep you and your kids occupied if you're stuck in your car for several hours, I think is a really important thing as well. Get educated, learn, and practice. Yeah, I think so. I think the practicing part is pretty important. That's what I love about camping, right? Camping, you're going with the bare essentials that you need, and you're kind of learning how to use your gear. DSC fasting is great for your body. Yeah, it honestly is. It's the research is overwhelming how effective fasting is. I typically just do intermittent fasting where I'll go until about 2 o'clock or so before I eat anything. Sometimes I'll go all day. I'll go until like 6, 7 p.m. before I eat anything. Hi, I'm sorry. I don't remember what guy you're talking about. Was it in Marfugel's chat? Lost my job today. Oh no, I'm sorry, man. My work mandated the shot. Any channel support is greatly appreciated. Thank you. So your job required you get the vaccine. You said no, and they let you go. Yeah, that's tricky. I don't want to get into that. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know how I feel about that either way. But yeah, at least you're a YouTuber, man. Double down on YouTube. Every time one door closes, a new one opens up, and this could be your opportunity to really focus on YouTube. Try to go full time on it. May I suggest to learn about foraging for wild edibles? I personally am not very good at foraging for wild edibles. I never really invested the time to really learn how to do that. And part of the thing is like, it can also be pretty dangerous. You eat the wrong mushroom or you eat the wrong berries. There's probably just as many things out there that are harmful to you than are beneficial. Like you have to be pretty knowledgeable about that. And honestly, like in my area, I'll go walk in the woods. There's really nothing out there that seems very edible. Or maybe I'm just ignorant. Maybe I need to learn a little bit more about what is out there. I know you can eat like the inner bark of pine trees, right? You scrape away the outer bark and you're left with that inner bark, and you can make a tea out of that. And I've done that. I've chewed on that stuff before. I don't really do a whole lot with the wild edibles. At least in my area here in Maryland, there's just not a whole lot that really stands out to me that's really edible. And I think a lot of the stuff out there is pretty harmful. It's my perception though. I don't know. Maybe I need to open up my mind to that a little bit more. Glow sticks are cheap at the Dollar Tree. I love glow sticks. I recommend keeping those in your car emergency kit as well. I think those are a great item to keep in there. What about the jet boil MSR or something small that to boil water inside a car with a window cracked for ventilation? Might be great for instant coffee, hot chocolate, or mountain house meal. Yeah, that's really interesting. So I'm guessing this is like a propane, like a little portable propane tank for like camping, like one of those things. Yeah, man. So you're talking about cracking your window to let that exhaust go out so you don't have carbon monoxide poisoning or whatever it may be. I don't know. I don't know if that's really worth it. Because how many people would be tempted not to crack the window? And you'd have to probably do more than cracking the window. You may want to cook that outside of the car. I don't know about that one. Like maybe you could do that if you're really careful, you're really smart about it. I don't know if it's something I want to like openly recommend to people. As a mod, I see a lot of bad situations. Where were we? Yeah, I won't focus too much on past, but I was okay. Let's see. I have freeze-dried food, water filter, and a fire kit in my car every day, plus a change of clothes with winter gloves. Yes, having a change of clothes is important as well. You listen to some of the accounts that people have being stuck in their vehicles. They said that they had extra clothes and they put every layer of clothes on that they could, right? They had an extra jacket or sweatshirt, blanket, anything that they could to keep their own body's heat within. So again, like in this type of situation, I think containing your body's heat should be a higher priority than creating an external source of heat, like with a propane tank or creating a fire. You're in this situation. It's going to be pretty tricky to create a fire, and you'd have to open up your car door and do it outside your door in the middle of the highway. I don't really know how that would work out well. Now, having in your car is good though. Like if you go off a ditch, not in a winter storm, but just go off a ditch and you get stuck in the mud somewhere and you have to spend the night, being able to create a fire, I think is okay. It's a good thing to have. Most convenience for the car is the single burner propane cassette stove. Only costs about $20. Okay. Yes, water. Can't go 12 hours without food. I started to feel lightheaded and nauseous. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I guess everybody's a little bit different about that. Psychologically, it takes some getting used to. Like every fiber in your body is telling you, eat something, eat something, eat something. And you have to kind of overcome that. I don't know if whatever those hormones, ghrelin is the hunger hormone. I don't know if that could make you lightheaded. Some people have low blood sugar as well. Like that's a very real thing that they need some kind of kick to their blood sugar every couple hours. Hi from Alaska. I've never been on the East Coast. Here in Alaska, hand warmers and emergency blankets are a must. Yeah, I can imagine. I'm sure there's a lot of people that their cars veer off and they get stuck on the side of the road overnight there in Alaska. You wake up the next morning with a foot of snow on top of your car, not just a few inches. Yeah, absolutely. I can see that being a must. Read a book. Yeah, absolutely. I think bringing a book along for situations like this would be a great option. Especially, you get stuck in traffic jams quite often. People in LA get stuck in traffic jams for hours. Having something to keep your mind occupied and your kids occupied as well, I think is really important. We'll say first 3 days are rough. Oh, fasting? Yeah, I bet. I've never gone 3 days. I wanted to. After about 1 day, man, those ghrelin hormones and whatever else, man, they really convince you that you should eat something. It's pretty interesting kind of going against your own body's signals, right? Your body's telling you to eat something. You have to kind of be smarter in that. Be like, no, I'm not going to listen to you. I don't want to eat anything. I want to kind of follow through with this. It takes a lot of discipline to fast. At a lot of truck stops, one can buy appliances that can be used in their cars through their lighter. They can use electric blankets, stove, coolers, etc. I love the idea of an electric blanket that plugs into your car outlet. I've never seen one of those yet, but I do think that's pretty interesting. Just as long as you just have to worry about, are you going to drain your car battery? If you're in a blizzard, could you easily drain your car's battery? And I think it's possible that you could. I don't know. Maybe I'm making that up though. I have a background of fitness and nutrition and used to do 18-hour intermittent fasting. Yeah, and that's actually not that bad because if you're sleeping for probably 8 of those hours, so really that would be you waking up and not eating until like 8 p.m. At night would be an 18-hour fast. That's not bad at all. And I honestly believe that fasting is a great exercise that people in the prepping community should try doing that. There's a lot of little drills and exercises that we can do as preppers to be prepared. So not just knowledge based. A friend of mine, her and her husband used to do blackout scenarios. They go to the circuit breaker, flip the circuit breaker for the main one in their house, so nothing in their house has power, and they just ride it out. Go 24 hours, 48 hours in that situation just to make sure that they have all the resources, they know how to use them, they can get by 48 hours without any electricity to their home. And I love that idea. If you snowed in your car and have no water, you should know how to make snow into drinkable water. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, as long as you have some kind of container, or you can make some kind of container, yeah, I mean, I guess I don't even really know. So let's say you had a plastic body, cut the top of it. Now you have a cup. You go and get some snow up into it. I guess you try to use your hands to melt that snow, and hopefully it's warm enough in your car to melt that snow. But what if it's not? How else would you melt that snow and turn that into water? Not really sure. So there's a couple other items. So I think all these items that I mentioned are great additions to your car emergency kit for these winter scenarios. Definitely hand warmers, definitely emergency blankets, possibly some food rations, possibly some water pouches, and I think a deck of cards or a book, something for, especially if you have kids, that kind of keep your mind occupied. I think are all great additions for your car emergency kit. For your home, though, for these power outages, one thing that I love is, you definitely need some sort of flashlight. I love hybrid light. I really like what they do. I like that you have multiple ways of charging these lights. You can use solar panels on the back. You can use USB ports on the front to charge these. And you can also charge this directly out of your wall outlet before the emergency actually occurs, right? And so I think having some rechargeable lights like this is definitely a must-have for your home emergency kit during the winter time. I think definitely you want to have an emergency radio as well. I was debating whether you should have this in your car. I don't think you really need this in your car. You certainly could have an emergency radio like this in your car. A lot of the people, they were saying that they didn't get any notification. They had, their biggest concern was they had no idea if the police were on their way to help them, if their rescue was on the way or not. They were completely in the dark about what was going on. Another item that I think would be really beneficial in your home emergency preps for these winter times is going to be a home power system like this. So I've got a few of these, right? They have these solar power systems or home portable power stations. This one here is by Jackery. I honestly think that something like this is better than a gas generator. So an electric power station. Because again, with the gas generator, you can easily run out of gas. And now you have to stop sheltering in place to go and try to find this resource. You have to compete with everybody else for that resource. And let's say you have a gas generator. If you're in a small community and that community entirely shuts down, a lot of times, like the police, the fire trucks, the ambulances, they have to rely on public sources of gasoline as well. And you're kind of tapping into that resource by having a gas generator. I think that if you don't have to rely on that gasoline as much, it makes it more readily available for first responders. That's just my feeling on it. So I love the idea of having this with solar panels, so you're completely self-sufficient. Now I've got I've got another one of these by another company, and I was pretty happy with it. I actually sent it up to my mother, who's in upstate New York right now. They're experiencing power outages on and off. This one here is by Jackery. Again, I'm super happy with it. You again, you can just hook your electric blanket up to this thing if you really needed to. I have a couple electric heaters I could hook up to this thing. You could have a hot plate so you can cook boil water. Hook this up to your microwave, whatever you need to do. Something like this, I think, is a great addition. I honestly believe this, man, that these solar generators are far better than gas generators, in my opinion, for the average user. Obviously, this wouldn't be a good fit for your car, but I think for your home, something like this would be an awesome addition if anybody's looking to be prepared for these winter power outages. And I actually have a whole video on this, but this one here is by Jackery, and they've got these awesome solar panels that are super rugged. They have these magnets built right into it. They got a carrying handle on here, have all the cables built into it. So literally the cable that's built into this plugs directly into your power station, automatically charges it up. But I think something like this would be a great addition to your home winter power kit, you know? It's super lightweight. Yeah, I'm really impressed with this one. So this one's by Jackery. I have another one by EcoFlow, I think is the company that I have the other power station like that from. And I'm a big fan of those. You know, I think that, you know, I was telling you, my cousin went several days without power, and then he went and got a gas generator. So again, he has to go and make trips to the gas station, you know, back and forth to fill up on that. So you're not completely self-sufficient. A solar generator, you're totally self-sufficient. You can shelter in place. You don't need to keep going to the gas station. You don't need to store gasoline. You know, gas, I think, expires or goes bad after a year or two. You have to add preservatives and do a bunch of stuff to kind of keep it. You can extend the life of it, but gasoline does go bad. But I think for your home emergency kit, something like that would be a great addition. Thank you for throwing out chum to the anti-vaxxers. When the pandemic started is when I came across your channel because you were giving sensible advice while others were screaming pandemic. I don't want to go down that road too much. You know, I mean, yeah, here's the truth. Like, I've got both vaccines, and I still got the damn Omicron, right? It looks like this new Omicron variant is, these vaccines, they're not as effective against this variant. But I will say that this variant is also not nearly as bad as the Delta variant or the other ones as well, just from the numbers. But man, it's spreading like wildfire. It's pretty wild how many people are getting this variant right now. I don't want to go down that road. If you snowed in your car and have no water, you should kind of cover that one. For Lindsay, I'd much rather have an MRE or two because they have water-activated food heaters. Yes, that's a good point. And they're packed nutrition. Yes, thank you. That is a great point. And an MRE, man, they're one MRE has like 2,000 calories. And you're absolutely right. They have these little heaters kind of built into them that cook your food for you. And they do put off a good bit of heat. I would much rather have that than have a little propane burner within my vehicle. Mini glow sticks, trust me, really just for night vibes without power. They'll thank me. A couple minis a night lasts a month if you need them. Yeah, I am. Hold on. I actually am a big fan of glow sticks. I like these things quite a lot. Like, they're kid friendly, which is nice. You don't have to worry about batteries dying on you as well. You know, you have an emergency kit, but you haven't checked it in 2 years. The batteries are probably dead. Something like this, you open it up, you crack it open, and you got, what, 12 hours of light? Yeah, 12 hours of light with this. I'm a big fan of glow sticks. You know, they don't put off any heat or anything. It's omnidirectional light, but kids like them, but they're kid friendly. I think they're better than a candle if you're just looking for a light source, in my opinion. I'm a big fan of having glow sticks in your emergency kits. Being a retired Army, I've always got a couple MREs in the car as well as a wool-based blanket, 24-hour candles. Yeah, that's great. Wool blankets, man, are pretty effective. When I go hammock camping in the fall or winter, I'll bring a wool blanket with me in addition to all the other stuff I have. because they're so thick. You know, you go back to like the American Revolution or the Civil War, all those soldiers on both sides, they would be issued a wool blanket. And that wool blanket was everything. That was their tent, that was their sleeping bag. You know, a lot of times they'd wear it like a cloak and kind of have a brooch right here connecting the two ends of the wool blanket. Like that was a crucial part of their survival gear was this wool blanket. A lot of cowboys used to carry around wool blankets. You know, we have a real history with people surviving using just a wool blanket. Like it was just as essential of a tool as their knife was or their canteen was, right? Wool blankets, you know, have a pretty amazing history when you start diving into it. And they really are a very effective tool. And now you can get the wool and polyester blends that are not as itchy as a 100% wool blanket. I was thinking that something to warm water. They have like a coffee warmer, don't they, to run off a cigarette lighter in the car, but then you may not want to run the battery down. Yeah, I don't know. There's probably some kind of gadget out there that can kind of heat things up for you to help melt snow like that or boil water. That's still in a safe measure. With foraging, you get one shot to make a mistake. I've had some mushrooms I found on trail and made plantain tea soon. Tea. Yeah, that's kind of what concerns me about the foraging part. Yeah, I like that. You get one chance to make a mistake, and that's it. Great ideas, Sergeant Retired Charlie MREs. You're right. That would be much safer and easier. Didn't even think about that. Yeah, MREs. I think it's a great man. I should include that on my list. That is a great inclusion in a car emergency kit for winter, being stuck in snow like that. Pine trees are a super survival food. They really are, man. Pine trees are awesome. If I was in a real survival situation, I would hike all day until I found a pine forest, right? No, I don't like any of these other trees. I don't want oak trees. Oak trees are nice because they put off a lot of leaves, but pine trees, you can eat the inner part of the bark, make teas out of it. They have the resin in the tree branches that are great fire starters, and you have all the pine needles that you can use for insulation and creating shelters and everything. Yeah, pine trees are like the ultimate survival tree. Like that's what you got to look for in these survival situations, or even this camping situation. I was camping not that long ago, and I found this big broken down pine branch. I dragged it back, and man, that thing lights up like that, dude. It is perfect camping wood. Butane $20 stove or candle in a little fold-up stove. If you use wood or the little sterno cans, then you have to be outside though. But to get warm, hot water is important. Yeah, it's kind of a trade-off. Yeah, some of those things can be pretty dangerous using them indoors. Really got to be careful with that. Takes a lot of snow to make enough water to drink. I mean, a lot. You know, I've never tried that, honestly. That's a great idea. I should try to pack some snow in a cup and boil it and just see. You're probably right. It's probably like 1/4 of the volume, you know? It probably is quite a lot. Fasting for Survival lecture by Dr. Pradip on the Galen Foundation channel on YouTube. Okay, I'll check that out. Somebody said that you can use your windshield sunshades like a space blanket. The silver side supposedly reflects the body heat. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I mean, if I was in a survival situation like that, yeah, I would probably put that windshield sunshade up. You know, like the inside of your car, you're probably losing most of the heat through those windows. Anything you can do, put some cardboard up against those windows to provide some layer of insulation. I think it'd probably be a good idea. 12-volt heated car blanket. I'm about to look that up. I've never even seen one of those, but I love that idea. Where were we? Jeanette, yes, you can. Exactly. I use propane mainly with a $20 propane stove, but I'd also have Coleman Peak $20 butane, extra butane. Good way to end this. Good job. Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for joining in. I have many wild edible videos on my channel with many more to come. Monarchians. Okay, everybody go check out his channel if you want to learn about wild edibles. I don't know much about wild edibles. All right, let's check out your channel real quick. Let's see. Let's see if I can find it. Did I do that right? YouTube. I need to learn about wild edibles. I probably should learn about wild edibles. I'm sure it's really specific to every area as well. You know, what's wild and edible in my areas, Monarchians. Let's see if that pulls up his channel. Yeah, this looks like it's it right here. Prayer heathens. Okay, probably some wild edible stuff in there. All right, very cool. So that's his channel right there, guys. If you want to go check him out and learn a little bit more about wild edibles. D-Tech. They also make larger sizes of the hot hands, body size, and lap size. Very cool, man. Good power pack is a must. Do not drain your car battery. Yeah. So I've thought about keeping portable power battery backups and power stations in your vehicle, but I feel like they would just lose power pretty quickly, right? Especially if you're leaving it out in the cold over and over again. Water I mentioned a lot here. Is very important for life. Water is life. I treat water for a living. Very cool. Along with plenty of emergency water for 2 to 3 months, emergency mountain house, tub of packaged food, canned food. I'm ready. All right, man. I'm glad to hear that you're ready, prepared. I have those boat food bars in my car as they take heat and cold and last 5 years. Boiling water is the main key to cook and to sanitize and clean dishes. Yes, water life straw is a must. You could drink the water from the side of the road out of the gutter if you needed to. True. Yeah. Like if you had to, I mean, that story was saying people were walking half a mile to go to a gas station. You could find a source of water probably much closer than that if you had a life straw. A lot of times you can use the car jump battery to also charge your cell phone, a great tool for double duty. A lot of times you can use your car jump battery, like your jumper cables, to also charge your cell phone. I'm not sure how you do that, if I'm reading that right. If you have a soda bottle, put snow and have it in your car or on the outside of your coat layer. Any heat that escapes through the coat will at least warm the bottle of snow. Yeah, so that's really interesting. That may work, right? If you had a soda bottle or you had a plastic bottle, pack it full of snow, I do wonder if you just kept it in your vehicle, if that would eventually melt. And I guess your inside of your vehicle would just have to be warmer than 32 degrees. If it's 33 degrees, it'll eventually melt, although maybe a little slow. And if you had it on the outside of your jacket or you somehow try to keep it warm, how long until the battery degrades? On this guy, I think it said something like 500 full charge cycles. So you can fully charge this thing up 500 times. I think that's what I read on it. Besides all the items mentioned for a car emergency, the one thing I always have in my car is 24 hours of medication. Yes, I'm a diabetic, short on insulin. Carrying my pills can hold me over it. Yes, that's a great addition. Good point, man. If you're on any kind of medication, definitely include extras in your car emergency kit. Non-believer, I know the beast. Okay. Everybody taking that crap. Okay. Oh no, my brother. I'm sorry. Where are we at? I have down pillows, fold out bivy I keep in my car. Got IKEA when doing some shopping for the new house about a year ago. Tested when I slept in my car before skiing. There we go. The plus a fleece jacket in my car. Good for any. Yeah, I think having just an extra jacket, having a winter jacket in your car, and some blankets, I think is a great addition. Snow to water is a 10-to-1 ratio. Wow, I was thinking maybe a 4-to-1. 10-to-1. I mean, I believe it. That's really interesting. And even when you drink it, it's probably gonna be freezing cold as well. Even if it's technically above freezing, it's probably gonna be very, very chilled water. Yeah, cars are poorly insulated. Yeah, I mean, I think somehow insulating those windows would be your best bet if you have boxes or bags or anything you can kind of shove up against them. Apartment prepping, I was just typing that. It's 1/10 the volume, snow to water. Here's a tip. Eating food will warm up your core. Will it? That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess your body probably burns energy digesting food. Maybe that's what you're talking about. I need to inventory what I have in my car. I have a backpack I'm still putting together. Makes a great knickknack on the coffee table. Good thing I'm in Oakland, California, eh? Yeah, you got to get, man, just put whatever you got, put it in there for now, just in case you have a freak snowstorm like this that you aren't expecting. Zippo hand warmers are awesome. Do not over file through, though, because they are tough to light. You will need to let them dry out some before you can light them. Okay. Loving all your content. I found you over on Christina Smallhorn's channel. Thanks for all the great survival tips. Yeah, in case you guys don't know, like I'm a full-time real estate agent. That's what I do as a job. I have a real estate channel as well. And so I was doing a collaboration with one of my friends, Christina Smallhorn, on my real estate side of things. But yeah, if you guys want to check out my real estate channel, you know, if anybody's interested in that, it's just Malcolm Lawson-Realtor is the name of that channel. Unsubbing, I don't need info from Vaxxers. Hello, IQ. All right, bud. I'll see you. I tasted them. Heart attack in a bun. Greasy. Sold cold in cars. Keeping the full belly hydrated is the best way to keep the core temp up, besides the obvious things. Fun fact, holding in your pee takes away shear from the rest of your body. Okay. All right, guys. Well, that is it. We're up to an hour and 10 minutes. I appreciate everybody joining me in on this call. I think it's important for us to learn life lessons and survival lessons from these real world scenarios that happen all the time. You know, I'm sure next month there's going to be some other big disaster situation like this that we're going to be able to cover and kind of evaluate and see what life lessons we can learn so that we're better prepared for these situations. If you guys haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to the channel. Like this video to help me get more views on it. And I will see you guys in the next video. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.